and I will start letting people in. And then I'll wait like 30 seconds for people to get in, and then we'll start. I'll introduce you and do the whole, probably said that to you like 19 times now.
I don't know how many of these we've done.
All right. People are still coming in.
Good.
Wait till about those 12 so far, 13. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll start. So hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for logging on and attending today's virtual program. My name is Matt Schumann. I am on the programming team here at Cary Library. Before we begin, please let me know if there are any technical issues that I can try to resolve. You can send those to me in the chat. Questions can otherwise be asked in the Q&A function. This program is made possible by the generous donors to the Cary Library Foundation. I'd like to introduce now Ashley Rooney, author of many books and past president of the Lexington Field Garden Club. Ashley has been a diverse supplier of speakers and topics for our virtual gardening series. I'm always impressed by her and her colleagues that she brings to the virtual library. So next week, we will also be doing a program on fairy gardens, so be sure to sign up on the library's website. Without further ado, please welcome Ashley Rooney.
Thank you, Matt. And I hope that the audience really appreciates your shirt. Will you show it off a little bit more, Matt, so everybody
Oh,
can...
sure. Yes, it's many different plants.
We've gotten Matt into flowers, and he has a large floral display to enjoy. The other impressive person I have with us today is Elaine Doran, master gardener, and a woman who knows how to make everything beautiful. You go to her garden and you just marvel.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And before we actually start with the demo, I thought I would really talk about hanging baskets and show you a few examples, and then Elaine is going to demonstrate how to make one. At the start of the growing season, I began thinking about creating some hanging baskets which add beauty, color, and texture to the landscape. Hanging baskets can turn just about any nook or cranny into an inviting retreat. When suspended from a ceiling, fence, or even a tree, planters can bring additional color to your landscape. And if you have red, you can even bring a hummingbird or two. To make your own, there's an old adage which goes well here: a thriller, a filler, and a spiller. That's the basic formula for making planters. One plant that grabs the eye, one plant that fills in the holes, and one plant that spills over the edges. To determine your plants, you need to decide whether your basket will be in the sun for 6 hours a day or in the shade or somewhere in between. This bougainvillea takes the sun, loves the sun, and it's going to sit out there and bloom away. And geraniums and zinnias and fuchsias or coleus are good choices for main theme upright flowers, and all of them except fuchsia really like sun. You can fill in with things like petunias and nasturtiums. If you're going for shade, add the begonias. As for your spiller, look to combine them with colorful foliage plants such as licorice plant, purple shield, or sweet potato vine. The baskets look best if they're crowded with plants. The best hanging baskets are between 14 to 16 inches in diameter, as this gives you ample room for a variety of plants. Plastic or wire baskets are the best candidates. Plastic is inexpensive, easy to plant, and slower to dry out. Very important, and we will talk about ordering these later on. Planting a wire basket isn't as easy, and you need a liner. However, plastic-coated galvanized wire baskets allow more choices in size and planting arrangements. Many people find them more attractive because they become a flower-covered ball, visible from all angles. The internet has good instructions for how to plant them, and Elaine's going to demonstrate that in several minutes. Whatever type of basket you are planting, begin by selecting a good potting soil to fill it with. Garden soil is too heavy and may carry pathogens that can infect your flowers. Choose a lightweight bag soil. Moisten the soil and add more water as settling occurs before you start the planting. Trailing plants should be planted at the edges, and bushier upright plants at the center or in the back. Be sure that the taller plants do not interfere with hanging the basket. Test the hook you plan to use to be sure that it is strong enough to support the full weight of the basket when the planting has been watered, as well as when it's dry. Water your creation very well. Hang it in a cool, shaded place to recover for several days before subjecting it to the full sun. And see, we hear this whole array of baskets that this woman has done around her porch. It helps make that, screened-in porch look more attractive and give more flower display. And now we're going to turn to Elaine's video on how to make.
So today I'm going to plant a hanging mixed basket. And I'm using a reusable hanger that I've had for a couple of years. The liner will last you a couple of years. It's cocoa fiber, and you can actually buy a replacement liner once this wears out. They're really just wonderful. I prefer them over plastic because of the way they look. And what I've got here is some potting mix, just organic potting mix that I purchased from the local garden center, and I've mixed it 3-to-1 with some compost, organic compost. And I've mixed that up really well, so it's all nice and combined. And I'm going to start by putting some of this in the bottom. Here I'm probably going to fill this about halfway. And the first plant I'm going to put in goes in the center, so you want to start with that. And this is a variety of begonia that was bred for its extra large flowers. And the beautiful bronze foliage will turn even more bronze in the sunshine. If you have this in the shade, the leaves will be a little bit paler, but this plant does well in sun or shade. Begonias are wonderful like that. So I'm going to remove part of the bottom of this because we don't need all of this root ball. And you can do that with this plant very safely, and there won't be a problem. So I've taken about 1/3 off the bottom so it'll fit nicely into the container. I made a little well in the middle here. I'm going to put this, actually I'm going to take off the hanger to one side here so I can have better access there. So I'm nestling that right in there, like that. I'm going to add a little bit of soil around, not all the way to the top, just some, to stabilize it a bit. The next thing I'm going to put in is this Super Tunia limoncello color. Again, I'm going to remove part of the root ball, probably about 1/3. This will be positioned in here nicely, right to the side. We have a white bacopa. All of these plants will do well in part sun, which is the location I've chosen for this hanging basket. It's important to know your exposure before you choose your plants. I'm going to take a little bit of the root ball off on this also. I'm going to position this on the other side of the hanging basket. Plenty of room in there. It may look a little overstuffed, but I plant them full to start, especially late in the season like this. Remove part of the root ball in the scavola. Make sure the plant is facing the right way here, so the natural hang of it is going to go over the side of the container. I'm going to tuck that in there. Do the same with one for the other side of the basket. Find that nice hanging spot there like this. Take a little bit of the root off of that. Put this on the other side. And now, finishing touches to using your hand, adding soil around the edges and filling in the gaps that you've created between the pots. giving everything a good tampering in here. A little bit more soil. I feel a gap here. I'm going to fill a little more soil. Tamp everything down nicely. Take my third, my legs here, and get them back on here, and here, and there. So I'll probably give this a nice watering, and there you have it.
That was perfect, and you will see that final product at the end of this program. And we are open for questions, and they don't have to be on hanging baskets. One person did ask what plants are good in hanging baskets. Elaine mentioned Supertunia petunias, and they're excellent. Lobelia, impatiens, fountain grass, tradescentia, verbena, fuchsia, begonias, the one I can't pronounce well, calabraccio, and lantana. Do you have more to add to that list, Elaine?
Don't forget the good old standby European ivy geranium.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Sophie is the pink one. Lila is the lilac. And they're both excellent and easy performers.
Okay, from Regine. Oh, wait a minute. The questions are coming in differently. Good chat. How often do you need to water your hanging plants? You want to start?
Sure. So a lot of that will depend on what kind of exposure your hanging basket has. So if you've got a basket that's in full direct sun all day long, you will probably need to water it once a day on a hot week. If it is in partial sun, you might be able to skip a few days. If we have very cloudy and cool weather, you'll notice that you do not have to water it as often. A good test is to put your hand on the bottom of the pot and lift up so you're supporting the weight of the pot. If that pot feels light, then it needs a drink. If the pot has good weight to it, it's very indicative of it being very moist and wet. So I like the weight test, but I also put my hand on the top and test the soil on the top as well for moistness.
Yeah, that's the one I would pick up. You water only when the top of the soil is dry to the touch.
Yeah, in a little ways, because it can be a little dry on the top, but then as you get down in, it can still be pretty moist. So weighing it in your hand is actually a good thing to go by.
Right. And this last week, before all the thunderstorms, you didn't really water those hanging pots. It was really hot out there, and they were really suffering.
Yes.
Miranda also asked, what about flowers for hanging baskets that are in the hot afternoon sun with no morning sun?
Okay, well, geraniums would be a good choice again for that. The European ivy geranium is just an excellent, easy performer. You see them in the barrels on Mass Ave, that pink sort of open, lacy flower. Those are just so easy. And begonias, dragon wing begonias would be another choice. Again, an excellent performer, very forgiving. You don't have to water them that often, and they will take bright sun.
Yeah. I think watering is the hardest part of maintaining a hanging basket or any plant.
Yeah.
You can't keep the soil too wet because it's going to result in roof rot problems, and you can't keep it too dry or the plant will wilt and die. You want to hit that happy medium. So do the weight test, do the dry test, and keep checking. And with these hot days, water it almost every day for sure. The second thing you might want to do is a midsummer trim. I notice some of my plants get so happy out there. They're just growing and they're dripping and they look pretty shaggy. My asparagus fern particularly can really like too much. So you want to give it a haircut. That makes it look a lot better.
And don't forget to feed, of course. So one thing you can do when you're planting or when you buy the hanging plant is you could add a little Osmocote to the tops of the soil. That's a slow release fertilizer that it has to be above 70 degrees for it to start to break down. So that within the combination of when you water it will allow the fertilizer to slow release and feed the plants. If you don't want to do that, just use good old Miracle Grow, mix it as directed in your watering can, and but just don't forget to feed, especially plants that are in the sun. They need more energy to keep themselves going.
Us.
They do. We got to help them along.
What would you suggest if you want to plant a hanging basket with just greens? This person asks.
Well, there's lots of options especially if it's shady. Of course, you could use almost any kind of house plant that you see in the market and just make a whole assortment of them in your hanging basket. Annuals, you could go with coleus and different
Purple.
kinds of vines, different potato vine, and I mean, there's lots of. Can you think of anything else, Ashley?
I was thinking of, it's called Purple Shield or
Purple Shield. Yes, that's a great one. Yep.
That is a great one for hanging.
Mm-hmm.
Asparagus fern love being out there. The begonias. How about your hanging tuberous begonias? They are gorgeous.
I think she just wanted greens though, and the tuberous begonias are flowering. Yeah. So just greens, I'd go. Yeah.
Though you have better luck with your tuberous begonias than I have mine. So
lots of ferns too. You can use ferns and. Well, I don't. You jump in here, Ashley, if you disagree with me. But I like to plant it so it looks full. I don't plant with lots of space in between the plants in a hanger or in a window box or in a pot. I've done this for many years and have always started off with a full-looking container, and it really has never had a bad result. They continue to grow, perfectly happy. I know some people rather have just, a lot of space in between their plants, which is fine. You can just make sure you feed them enough so they'll grow on and fill in. But I prefer to, I hope this answered the question, to really plant so it looks full when you finish.
Well, if you look at the plant that you demonstrated in your video, that pot was probably about 14 inches. You had 6 big plants in there.
5.
Huh? Okay, 5.
That's okay.
That big one in the middle was very big.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting that you took off the bottom of the,
yes.
I hadn't seen that done before.
Yeah.
That's a one way.
Not for the faint of heart.
It looks, and it looks that way. I think squish it in the beginning and then let the plants move and they relax. And if you go back to my thriller, filler, and spiller, you want that plant that's going to spill off the edge, so it won't take up so much room.
Right. You put it closer to the edge.
Yeah. What are your favorite plants that are your go-tos for flowering pots? I rattled off a list.
You want to go? Do you want me to go, or?
You go. I rattled off my list before.
Okay. I love lantana. I love European ivy geraniums. All kinds of begonias. Because they're just so easy. I use bacopa as a filler. What else do I use around? Black and blue salvia is a good one. Verbena is another. Yeah, that's
my list included also super tunia petunias. That's hard to say.
Those are nice and easy.
And impatient. I've never used Triticynthia, but I thought that was interesting to be in the hanging pot. It might be very nice. Fuchsia's lovely.
Yes.
And Calabrochia, you'll see all the time. They're often doing that.
I do. I was sorry. I was my disembodied voice is interrupting, but I have like a hanging pothos in my house, but I don't know if that works outside.
You can have it outside in the summer. In the shade. I wouldn't put it in the sun. I'd keep it in sort of, very open shade, open, bright light, but not full sun or direct sun.
Matter of fact, it'll be very good for your houseplants to be outside. I find that they really take off then. You'll end up with such a big pothos, you're going to divide it into 2 and be coming back to us. How do we divide plants? But they can be really lovely. This attendee wants to know, can we talk about continuing care, pruning, deadheading? Oh, we haven't mentioned deadheading, very important. And other tips. I find that my planters start out lovely, but end up being stragglers. Question fertilizer.
Well, a straggly, unkempt looking hanging pot is usually the result of erratic watering and not feeding, meaning not watering at the correct times, maybe letting it get really dry and then really flooding it, maybe not feeding it enough or watering or overfeeding it. Maybe what you're planting needs to be deadheaded or cut back so it fills out a little bit more. There's a lot of factors involved for why something would look straggly. If you have one that looks straggly, I would give it a good haircut. I wouldn't just deadhead it. I'd probably cut those plants halfway back or so, and make sure that you're watering on a regular basis and you are feeding on a regular basis. So if you're watering your plants 2 or 3 times a week, I'd say you want to be feeding them at least twice a month, at least every other week. You know, you can't overfeed a container basically because you are flushing it out with fresh water every time you're watering it anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like I said.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered that. If you have more, come back to us with that one. My tuberous begonias never flower as much as advertised. What are your tips? I'll tell you one thing I know as a tip. I bought tuberous begonias for my husband's birthday, and Elaine gave me some tuberous begonias. Hers were a lot better than mine. Matter of fact, mine rotted and died. We grew them the same way in the basement and so forth. So I think one thing is getting the right bulb and getting it the right place.
But yeah, purchasing healthy plants to begin with at the get-go makes a huge difference.
Right. You know, and tuberous begonias, they are finicky. They kind of want to be in the shade and they want enough dampness. You have more to add to this one, Elaine?
Well, I wouldn't say full shade. I have a big bowl of tuberous begonias that every year in the same spot. And they get, I'd say they probably get 4 or 5 hours of filtered sun. That is sun that's sort of dappled through trees. And we've always had great luck with that bowl of tuberous begonias. And we don't water them a lot, again, for the, fear of having them just get rotten and whatnot. They're always sort of on a nice, even moist, in a nice, even moist soil. We do plant that bowl very tight. It's crowded with tuberous begonias. So I think that has something to do with them sort of creating their own sort of moisture, if you will. The leaves are all touching. You can't really see soil in the pot. I think there's a lot to be said for planting the container full at the beginning. And the biggest factor, I think, is to buy really healthy plants at the get-go. And don't buy plants that look wobbly in their pot. So if you hold a tuberous begonia pot, the stems aren't sort of wobbling all over the place. They're nice and strong and rigid.
What do you do, given the thunderstorms we've had this week? Do you bring them in before a major thunderstorm? Because
the tuberous begonias?
Yeah, that rain came down so hard and they survived.
The bowl looks great. I should have taken a picture to show you. No, they survived just fine. They looked absolutely terrific.
That's great.
Yep.
Somebody wants to know, what do you mean by tight planting? Begonia bulbs actually touching when planted?
Oh, by tight planting, I don't. If this was in reference to the planting the hanging basket or a container. I think
it was the tuberous begonias you just mentioned.
The tuberous, tight plant. Well, I put enough plants in that container, so they're not up touching each other, but they're close enough. They're probably 3 or 4 inches, maybe 4 inches apart at the most.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of space in between the plants.
Okay. But it's deep enough in the soil so their roots are going to go down.
Yeah, there's good depth to the container. There's plenty of soil in the container, so the roots are probably tending to go down rather than sideways, but you're ending up with a sort of a finished effect at the beginning of just after you plant. You'll have sort of a finished look. It won't be, you know, sort of one here, one there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I would add is, particularly given that it's summer, if you're going to go away, arrange for somebody to take care of your hanging plants. Figure that out. Ask people to babysit. I got to babysit a kumquat for the summer. I'm delighted. I am eating kumquats in my salad.
I
But
have something to add on that. It's something you might try if you can't find somebody to babysit your hanging plants, and they're in the sun. What we've done in the past is we've taken them down and just moved them to another section of the yard and put them like on milk crates or something, just so they're not in full direct sun, and so therefore needing a little less water. And you'll maybe lose some of the flowering because they won't be in direct sun, but the plant will not dry out and, you know, die before you get home.
come home and you find this poor dead plant like this, you know.
Exactly.
You know, and that's a very sad thing. It's like coming home and seeing the woodchuck has been in your vegetable garden.
That's true.
How can you discourage chipmunks?
Wow, that is just something that
Get a cat.
really difficult. Yeah, I really. Do you have any tips for that? I mean, I sort of give up on that one. They're going to get in and get to what they want, no matter.
Yeah. The neighbor's cat is lovely. The neighbor's trap is lovely. You've got to figure out your way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's like discouraging rabbits, which are even harder to
Or
discourage.
deer. I mean, there's a product, a liquid fence product that you can spray on that I use to deter rabbits from eating my hosta. And they actually deters the chipmunks as well. And the spray will last quite a while, last a week once you put it on. But if it rains really hard or something, you will have to reapply it. It's called liquid fence, and it just keeps animals from eating your plants. It doesn't smell very good. It's an all natural thing though. It's I believe it has garlic in it, and that's what gives it its scent.
Yeah, but the other thing I do for just potted plants, not hanging ones, because I can't imagine that the chipmunks are going to get into your hanging plants. I will put chicken wire around them. My dog happens to adore zinnia leaves. And so he takes munching away, you know, and so we now have chicken wire around those plants until they're big enough that the zinnia's leaves are no longer tasty. You got to figure out how you're going to do it. With the chipmunks, you can get them high enough, your plants, so they shouldn't be able to reach them. You're not going there. One thing I should say is, I mentioned it quickly early on, with your hanging plants, if you plant red flowers, you will attract hummingbirds. And this is the season for hummingbirds. And they will come right up, they come right up to my porch now, looking at the red petunias and so forth. So I've been emphasizing more red, and it's really nice to have that. I have one more. When do you start your hanging baskets?
That's a difficult question because we used to grow a lot of hanging baskets, but of course we would start them when the plants were very young, and we'd start them in January or February to have them ready for the spring. This is when we had the greenhouse operation. But I think for the homeowner, you would just buy 5-inch plant material and plant it the way I showed in the video. If you wanted to start off with much smaller things and grow them on, like if you bought a 6-pack of verbena and wanted to just, you know, plant them in the hanging basket and not have like a finished look ready to go like I demonstrated, you would probably start something like that. Well, it would have to be after the last frost, so you're looking at the second week of May. And then by the time it grew enough to really look like something, and you'd have to pinch it back the way they do professionally feed it correctly and love it and all of that business the way they do professionally, it takes several months. It takes 2 or 3 months. That's why most people choose to buy a hanging basket that's already finished, or they grow or plant one the way I showed you how to do, by buying 5-inch finished material and then just making your own arrangement.
And then you would do that when the season begins, really, the beginning of May, depending on how cold it is.
The smaller plants, you mean, or?
No, hanging baskets. I mean, you can start hanging your baskets outside in May as long as you're watching if frost is coming.
Yeah, you could. You're going to wait a while, though, to have a big show if you start with really tiny plants. Some people don't mind if it's July or something before they have something that really looks of size.
Right.
So that's why you see all those beautiful hanging baskets in the nurseries, in the garden centers in the spring. Those plants have been growing since January and February. And they've been lovingly pinched and fed correctly with the right temperatures and all of that, and that's what makes them gorgeous. So I think, some people like the experience of doing that themselves or trying to do that, which is fine, and it's rewarding. But I think if you want to have something that looks really wonderful and has size and color to it, you should start with 5-inch material and sort of make your flower arrangement in your hanging pot.
I would agree, because when I try them, they're not as pretty as yours, but they look pretty good within a week.
Yeah. I'm sure they look great.
One of the things you can do with some of these materials is winter them over. I wintered over my bougainvillea from last year. It hasn't bloomed yet, but it looks really great. And we have a feeling the leaves, it's going to bloom very soon, sitting out there. You can also do that with tuberous begonias. You can winter over those bulbs, caladium, all sorts of things. And wintering over, if you want to save some money, you got to follow directions, and it has to be in the right temperature. You can't just put them out in your garage and hope it's going to work. But it's kind of fun to say, oh yes, I wintered that over from last year. It's doing.
Absolutely.
We have time for a few more questions. Any questions on gardening in general while we're here?
Hey, it looks like you have a couple more already too in the Q&A.
Oh, the Q&As. Oh, wait, it's 6. Oh, good. Oh, we did tight planting. Not container related, but do you have advice on keeping birds off sunflowers? Oh. That's why you grow them. I made dwarf sunflowers at Whole Foods yesterday, and already 2 of them were pecked apart at the top. Oh, I would do chicken wire on the top. We'll do a screen.
That's probably, nature is nature, and the birds are attracted to those kinds of things, and that's just what happens. I love birds, so if I saw the birds on my sunflowers, I'd be really happy.
Yeah, but not if you just bought those sunflowers.
Not if you just bought them. Right.
Do you ever put perennials in hanging baskets? Yes, the bougainvillea is a perennial. It's a tropical perennial. There are other ones you can put. My asparagus fern is a perennial. Begonias are perennials.
Well, heuchera, coral bells, but the whole family of heucheras have such a wide variety of foliage colors now. You could really, and their flowers really aren't very significant, so you more buy them for the foliage. You could make a beautiful hanging basket with just different sort of textures of foliage like that of heuchera, and they're perennial. So at the end of the season, you can take them out of your hanging pot and you could plant them in the ground, and then you'd have something for next year.
Or you can keep them in the hanging pot and bury the hanging pot in your garden.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, well, I did that with all those plants.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you leave it in the pot?
I left them in the pot, and then back next year. And some of these people who are asking questions have some of those plants.
It's great.
Okay. I was wondering about this while we were talking, and I'm glad somebody asked. So, do you do vegetables in your hanging baskets? If so, which ones?
Well, cherry tomatoes are a great one for any kind of cherry tomato. You could do herbs. For me, I really haven't had much experience with other types of vegetables and hanging baskets. I don't know if there's miniature squashes out there or the other kind of viney type of vegetables that would do well. Small cucumbers maybe or something possible.
They could get really heavy though. You got to be careful about
They were minis. They were the miniatures, like the cornichon type things. Yeah.
but I think it would be very attractive. And then this year, as we're all growing more vegetables, trying to be healthier,
Yeah.
it's worthwhile experimenting on that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Also not container related, but do you pinch back sedum? What does that mean to pinch it back? You remove the new little flower buds. Is it now a good time to do that?
Pinchback sedum.
What kind of sedum?
Yeah, it depends what kind. There's so many different kinds.
I do my autumn joy sedum. I do pinch it back, cut it back because it's going to get too big and too heavy.
Oh, okay.
So we'll cut that back or it'll overtake the garden. And yes, it's a good time to pinch or cut back things. The books recommend if you have Joe Pye, cut down, you don't want it to get to be so tall, but Joe Pye can get to be about 7 feet tall. My husband hates it that tall. If I cut it down now, it'll be just about 5 feet when it blooms, and so that's fine. Similarly with your asters,
Right.
try to keep things short.
Right. Some of those smaller sedums, once they flower, you can certainly cut back the flowering part of it.
Yeah, keep it within bounds.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at another garden the other day, and she obviously pinches back a lot, and it's all very carefully tailored, unlike my garden. And it's up to you how much you do, but gardens are meant for experimenting. You got to get out there and just try and say, okay, that looks good.
That's right.
Sometimes your plants will get to be rapacious, and they will try to take over your whole garden. You don't want them to take over the Shasta daisy or something. So pinch it back, cut them back. Suggestions for full shade plants. I'm in love with goat's beard, which grows about 6 feet, and it has a beautiful white feathery thing like a stilby. It's just finished blooming now. It covers, conceals ugly fences, things like that, and it grows in deep shade. It's very nice. What do you have a suggestion for?
How about European ginger?
Yeah.
And all kinds of astilbe, ferns and hostas, of course, you can't go wrong. There are varieties of perennial geranium that'll do well.
Hosta certainly will grow in deep shade.
Absolutely.
I find even Mountain Joy sedum will grow in shade.
Oh.
It'll do it all right. Oh, Matt, this is a question for you. Are you there? The system didn't.
Yep.
Okay, Stanley wants, the system didn't send me the link, so I have missed the program. Where can I actually see the recording when it is posted?
So it'll be on YouTube later today. I'm curious how you ended up in well, it looks like you ended up in later. Probably Mina sent the email while we were doing this, but I'm sorry about that, but it will be up on YouTube later.
Good. Please, let me get back to you all. There we are, there's Elaine. Please comment on deadheading and pinching back. Deadheading is really key. If you want those lilies to keep blooming, take off the dead blooms. And I throw them back into the garden. They're gonna be nice mulch. They're gonna enrich the soil, that'll be fine. Deadhead almost everything. Pinching back we just discussed. Do you wanna say more about deadheading, my dear?
No, I think you covered it.
Yeah. What is your absolutely favorite plants for hanging baskets? I have colors. I go red and purple. I go bright. What are yours?
Absolute favorites are, because of the ease of care, again, is that European ivy geranium, lantana, the light lavender color one, which has a really nice hanging habit. And I'm just in love with dragon wing begonias or Richmondensis begonias. All of those make very easy and beautiful, great performers, those plants. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where do you get those plants, Elaine? Do you get them in nurseries around here?
Yes.
Okay.
Local, I don't know if we're not allowed to really give names of nurseries. I don't want to get into
Local, our local nurseries, not some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do go to a couple of nurseries out of state as well, but I do go local too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, this man is back. Finally, the link is set, but how do I find it on YouTube?
So what you'll do is, what everyone can do is you go on youtube.com and you can search Carey Library, and you'll see the first result should just be our channel. If it's not that, it's probably a video from our channel, so you can just click where it says Carey Library. Otherwise, you can go to our website, careylibrary.org, and up in the corner, there's like a little red icon with like a play sign in it, like the right-facing triangle thing, like you'd see on like a tape deck or CD player or whatever. That's, you can click that and it'll just directly bring you there.
Okay.
And the sorry, I should say, they're sorted by most recently uploaded, but you can go to adult programming, and that'll be, you'll see all of these kinds of events, or the cooking ones, etc.
Yeah, we've been doing this since April, so I think it's April, so there are quite a few of these. Do you have suggestions for fall hanging planters?
Well, the thing for fall is, it's a short season, so whether, it's really worth your while to plant a hanger for the fall, for September and October, of course, there's mums, there's sedum. You could go to the local nursery and see all the different 5 and 6 inch material they have out for fall, and just make a collection of that you like according to texture and color, and that's what I would do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think I would do that. Stanley says, thank you, Matt. One of the things we mentioned quickly, but I will mention it again because people are looking for things, those vines now that they have, the sweet potato vine, which comes in a deep maroon or chartreuse, they grow very nicely, and they are a great spiller off your pots, whether it's hanging or just a potted plant. I've also found that I took a shoot, stuck it in water, and I had roots within a week. I put it outside, it's already growing in the next pot. And I kept it throughout the winter, so I didn't have to buy some for this year, so I had my own to get going. It's a nice thing to have, and it really looks quite pretty. It's very bright and cheery and so forth. Okay, and are there any more questions before I wrap up? Because you haven't seen what happened with Elaine's beautiful pot. So Matt, if you would put that on, and we can say goodbye. And next week will be fairy gardens and homes. It is certainly geared for anybody who knows anybody young or who loves playing with small things and little flowers. It's a fun program.
Did you get the fall hanging planters question? Sorry.
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. And did you hear that the man said thank you?
Yes.
Okay. So would you put on that final thing and see what happened at Elaine's plant? I think we took that video, 2 weeks ago, when you made it?
I'd say it's about 2 weeks, maybe 3.
Okay.
Yep, I will have that up in 1 second. My computer is just lagging a little bit.
That's all right. And there it is from what she started out with. You remember how tiny these plants were. That plant does, to me, that pot does not look overstuffed. It's just beautiful. It's a lovely, lovely display.
Thank you.
Well, it's typical of all your work, Elaine. It's
gorgeous. Oh, stop it. Thank you.
It's gorgeous. But this is what you can do. And I did say earlier, I think gardening is it's number one, a very creative activity. You can do all sorts of things out there, but you can play. Gardens are very forgiving, you know? I mean, if you dig the plant up and pull it out by its roots, that's the end of that plant. But you can trim, you can cut, you can deadhead, you can see what happens. You can try stuffing your pot and see what happens. And, you know, life is about taking on those challenges, whether it's overstuffing a pot or trimming and deadheading and seeing what happens, or putting the screen on the top of your sunflowers to keep the birds away from it. You can do it. This is part of what life is all about. So go enjoy this week, and next week we will see you at Fairy Garden.